React. What is it? You guys can see this, right? Am I tripping or not?
Yep.
Yeah,
Sounds good. All right. So what is React? So React is a declarative, efficient, and flexible JavaScript library for building user interfaces. It lets you compose complex UIs from small and isolated pieces of code called components. And we're going to be building our own components later on and form our own applications with these components. So you can see a pretty basic version of Hello World written in React. Now, if you were to run this code through Node, by default, it's not going to work because this syntax right here, you know how there's an annotation here, directly use HTML syntax within the JavaScript environment. So that's called JSX. JSX isn't native, like it doesn't natively work with JavaScript. It works using Babel, which is a whole nother thing, but it pretty much adds this syntax functionality that lets you render kind of HTML fragments inside of your JavaScript code. So this doesn't natively work. We're going to be using React, which bundles all the tools we need to be able to use, to be able to build, components and user interfaces like this. So let's set up the environment. This might take a while, might not. In case any of you don't have these tools, we're going to need to install Node. Let me open up. Let's see. Okay, so for starters, if you don't have Node, you're going to want to install it. Nodejs.org/downloads. I can send this in the chat right here. You're going to want to go here. I'm just going to do this on a virtual machine because I already have it installed. So I'm going to go to that URL and I'm going to, oh, maybe it's download. Okay, I screwed that up. Okay, let me change that. Good, I caught that. Okay, so you're going to go to this URL, the second one that I just gave you in the chat, and you're going to want to, sorry, there's people still joining. I was not looking, my bad. Okay. Hello, everyone, for joining. We're just starting off. We're starting, for those who are joined who missed out, we're just talking about React. We're setting it up. So to set it up, what you're going to want to do is download nodejs.org/en/download. Link here it is. Okay. And I'll try to keep an eye on the chat here. If any of you have questions, please interrupt me. So we're going to download Node.js, right? So it's pretty straightforward. You go to that website, you download for whatever operating system you're on. I'm on a Windows computer, so I'm going to download the MSI installer here. And it's pretty straightforward. Next, yes, I accept. I definitely read that quickly. Next, I don't know what that is. Don't care. Just install it, and depends on how long it takes. We'll see. But yeah, we should let that install. Okay, it's done. And to check if it works, you can open up your terminal. If you're on a Mac, it's called Terminal, I think. And then if you're on Windows, go to the search bar and hit on command prompt. So I just typed in CMD, just like there. And you should be able to type Node, and you get into this kind of shell that lets you use Node.js version 18 point or whatever version you're using, right? And so what exactly is Node? I'm just telling you to install something blindly. I'm not even telling you what it is. Pretty much Node itself, like by itself, it lets you execute JavaScript in a console environment. So traditionally JavaScript, back when it was developed initially, was for browser use. It add functionality to your browser. People developed a way to use JavaScript in the console, and so that's what Node is. We're going to use React. React is built upon Node or built within the Node ecosystem. So we need to install Node for this to execute correctly. And so let's go. So now let's install npx. npx, I don't even know what npx is, but I know that's how we create. I can actually quickly Google it. What is npx node? Let's see. So it's a Node package execute. Comes with Node. It's a package runner that lets you. Okay, so it just pretty much bundles stuff together. Okay. So we're going to install npx because that's how we create our React application. And again, if I'm going too quickly, please interrupt me and tell me I'm going too fast. I'll slow down. I know I'm just trying to fly through this because the setup is the most boring part, and I don't want to lose you guys. So yeah, let's set up this. So I'll put this command in chat. or sorry, we're going to install npx first. So this command, you're going to want to type that into your terminal. Oh, I sent that to waiting room participants. Oops, there we go. Okay. So put that command in your console. I'm going to do that, and it's going to install npx globally, which just means you can use its command line interface anywhere in the terminal, anywhere, any directory you're at. I hope, okay, never mind. Thought it was going to do something weird. So that's installed, and so now we can actually use create React app. And so this is like kind of a tool to bundle like a React application. It kind of starts you off with like a template, and you can build your project upon it. Because if you were to create a React application from scratch, you have to set up like the Babel configuration. You got to do all that old stuff no one wants to do. That's pretty tedious. You can just do this to create React app. This lets you do it, or this lets you kind of not have to think about a lot of the technicalities. So I'll paste this command in chat. And so when you run this, you're going to want to run this in the directory where you are, and also I didn't even, don't run it yet. Let me go through this. So I want to create this application on my desktop. So I'm going to do, at this point, I can just use my computer now. So let me change my screen because it's sharing. Okay, I'm going to share my main screen here. Okay, you guys can see this hopefully. So I'm going to go to my terminal here. And by default, if you type in CMD, you should be at your like user directory, like your home directory. I'm going to go over to my desktop here. So CD desktop, just because I want to build my app on my desktop. Not a great practice, but just for the showing you guys where your files are, I'm just going to make it on my desktop. So I don't know how that works on Mac. On Linux, it's pretty much the same thing. You just got to go to your desktop. And so I'm going to do npx create React app, and then my app, you can change this to whatever you want. Okay, that's good. So I'm going to call this sample. I don't know. We're just going to be playing around with React right now. So I'm going to call my project sample. And so this will just be pretty much like a, what's it called? It's just, you're going to be what your project is like called like on as a directory. So I'm just going to hit enter here. And it might take a while to like bootstrap all the files together and create it. So you're going to have to give it a second. So yeah, it'll tell you, and there's your folder right there. Yeah, we'll get into that. And while that's doing that, I would recommend a what's it called? A code editor in case you don't have one. I use Visual Studio Code. So in case you don't have one, now is a great time to install one. So I'll put this in here in the chat in case you don't have it. Set it up. It's a nice code editor. Is brackets a code editor? That's for like web development, right? I've heard of brackets. In terms of functionality, I'm not sure what it does, but I mean, it looks nice. That's, oh, it's not, those are not brackets that I was looking for. But main reason why I like Visual Studio Code is because of the extensions and the ecosystem around that. A lot of developers can build a ton of stuff around it. This looks nice. I won't admit, I mean, I won't lie. It looks nice. I don't know if it's going to be as functional as you'd want it, because I mean, if you can open up a console in here, that's great. So, I mean, if it can do that, or if you can just open up a command prompt and just do your code side to side. I like seeing my console right next to my code, but that's just preferential. You can use whatever you want. Okay, so it just finished for me. And again, please tell me if I'm going too fast. So you can see that in our sample, we have a ton of files here. We have a node modules, so that's like your like all your dependencies in here. Public, so these are all just static files, pretty much. Source, this is where the source code is, like all of your actual code that we're going to be touching. And your package.json, you can see. I guess I was going to open this later on. There's not much going on in here. You'd think React has a ton of dependencies. You know, it does obviously nested, but these are all your dependencies. It's pretty nice. It's kind of all in one together. It is, what is it? It is installing after running the last command. It is? Or is that a question? Let me see. Yeah, so the last command I did was, or the first command was npx install -g, so you want to install it globally. npx. So npx is like kind of like npm. I didn't even explain what npm was. Npm is the node package manager. It's pretty much like the global registry of all node modules that you can install from the internet on through this registry. And you can through there you can install this thing called npx. Was it installing?
Hello?
Yeah, what's up?
Oh, perfect. Just got my Mac. So yeah, I ran the last command, the npx create React app, and then my app, and then of course I added the part that says sample, and then now it's kind of installing. It is installing React dash DOM, and React dash scripts, and then CRA template, CRA stash template. It appears that as though it's done now though, so I'm kind of yeah.
It's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
taking a while. Okay.
Okay. You did the same thing as just
Yeah,
it's probably just
I
slower.
think it's because I had it installed already or something. I don't know.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All
So
right,
you're all good?
oh yeah, I'm all good up to that stuff now. Yep.
All good. All right.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for getting everyone on page. Yeah, npm. Yeah, it's gonna be a little weird setting up, but yeah, I can wait just a little longer just for in case people are still installing that stuff. Mine did it really fast. I guess it's dependent on your internet and whatnot, other factors. So we'll give it a second. I can install some of the, or I can explain some of these commands as I just was doing. So create React app. They actually have documentation for that. And again, all we're doing is just setting up the environment. React app. It's like this is like an actual thing. Yeah, so it's just pretty much bundles a React project into one command, so you don't have to do a lot of the tedious setup. And so this is just what we're going to use as a way to easily, just easily start up a React project. It's just a shortcut, and you don't get access to a lot of the fine tuning, if you were going really technical about it. But for us and our, sample, for our case, it's fine what we're doing this with. So yeah, so now I'm assuming everyone's all up to date. I can slow down later. It's going to tell you a ton of stuff. Success. Hopefully it tells you. If you have any errors, please let me know. We can diagnose it. You're going to see it's made it to this directory. Inside that directory, you can run several commands. npm start. So that's what starts the development server. That's what we're going to do. You can run a build. We're going to talk about builds later and how you can make your React app ready for production. Test lets you do like probably just tests. I saw in the package manifest. Eject. Never actually used this, but it is a dangerous tool because it gets rid of. Yeah, you can't go back, and we're not going to have to deal with that. So to start, we go to cd sample, and just so that we're in this directory now, the directory where our like all of our project files is literally this directory, and then we can do npm start just like they said. And so what npm start does is I'm going to open this in Visual Studio Code, so I'm going to cancel this. But you can do the same thing. Yeah, so pretty much what npm start does is it runs this start script, and it doesn't really matter, but all I'm going to do is start the run script on my side, and I'm doing this in my IDE because I like having my console right next to my code. And so we're going to let this run. It might take a bit. It is very slow. There's a lot of files involved, especially first time, having to initialize everything. But you can see it opens up a website on your default browser, localhost :3000. So this is your React application. Can you do this CD sample one more time? Yeah. So you're right here, and it tells you. We suggest you begin typing cd sample. So cd sample, pretty much all this does is cd lets you go into a directory. So the directory that we're going to is our sample folder. So that's where we're going. So we need to go to because right now we're in our desktop, right? That's where we opened up our command line. And so I'm going to go to my sample. And so now we are inside of the sample folder. You can see that's within my desktop within my home directory, within my users directory, within my C drive. So I hope that makes sense. And so you can see that, what's it called? Did you call it sample? That might be the problem.
I'm having the same issue, but I found that in the directory is calling it my-app, and I'm seeing the same files that you have. So
yeah, you might have to do cd my app in case you ran that first command that I did on accident.
If you do cd my-app, it should give you what you need.
Yeah, that's my bad for switching you guys up like that. I didn't. Yeah, that's my bad. But anyways, you do that. You go to the cd my app. I guess mine's called sample. It doesn't really matter. Just make sure you remember what it's called so you can get back into that folder later. And then you run npm start, just like this. And then you open up your code editor. I don't know what code editors you guys use, but if you use Visual Studio, you click on File and then you open folder. And then opening folder, you find that same folder you're in. So my desktop, and then my sample folder, which is like this project. So I'll click select folder, and then it'll open it again. I already have it open, so I don't need to open it again. I think it already opened it. But yeah, so let's move on now. So you can see that this is pretty much our hello world kind of, or not really, but just our home code. I'm going to go back to the presentation here because you can see that once we set it up, here's our development environment. The website previews that locally hosted on your computer, the default code as you just saw, and then here's the console output as you just saw before. So this is kind of the situation we are in right now. So this is pretty much our code. So you'll notice that here's some divs, a lot of this red stuff. If you're familiar with HTML, this should be, you're gonna have a great time. If you're not, I would consider learning HTML a little bit. It's a pretty important language, but HTML, you can pretty much use HTML within this. So let's talk about JSX, which is what I was talking about, like over here, rendering HTML within our within our functions. So now that we have our project set up, let's learn the basics of React. We can start by understanding the JSX structure of component-based rendering in React. So you can see that the traditional HTML syntax applies, and we know that this is traditional HTML because div, paragraph, and other div, these are stuff that are native to HTML. Like if I go to this website right here, which is the repo of the code we're going to write, and I can share this. You can access these slides too at this repo, and I'll send this link right now, but you can follow along if you want. I'll send that in chat. But pretty much, if I were to inspect element on any of these things, you're going to see that divs, you're going to see a lot of divs, you're going to see some A tags, just like over here, some P tags maybe, but this is just traditional HTML within the JavaScript environment. Let's move on. So one of the big things in React is you can embed expressions. So running your JavaScript, or I guess putting your expressions in JavaScript through HTML rendering, or through HTML and rendering it through JavaScript. So you can see how like variables work. Let's say I have we have our main function, and then you see a name here. What's it called? Just a variable name, and that's set to my name. And you could render your expression, your JavaScript expression. And in this case, my expression is the variable itself. So that variable itself will just return my first name. If that's confusing. It's pretty much just replacing, it's just rendering your variable. It's just rendering a variable pretty much. And you can see by wrapping your expression around curly braces, the code will execute within. So let's try that out. So I'm going to get rid of a lot of this code here, like that makes it look like this, makes all this stuff. I don't really care. So I'm going to get rid of, I'll just get rid of all this. And you'll see that you'll get an error because you need to return something. So I'll return a paragraph tag saying like, my name is, and I'll make this bigger. Yeah, I'll make this a lot bigger. So I'll say like, my name is something, but let's first define a variable. So just like we did in the example, I'll call this like name, and then Zavaar. And then we have how did you open the file? So let's see. So what's it called? If you just open up Visual Studio, just a blank thing, and then you do open folder, like up to file, open folder. You find that folder you're in, and then you select folder, and you'll be exactly where I'm at. And then if you hit F10, I don't know what that is on Mac, but lets you open up the console. There you can run npm start, or you can just be in that same console and do npm start from there. It doesn't really matter. I just like seeing my console on the right when I'm coding. If that makes sense, let me know if you need help with that. But so I'm going to move on here. So we have we're going to want to render kind of our expression here and do name. Just throw it between the curly braces, and you'll see that it you get some warnings just because we're using some ESLint warnings. We're just not using this logo anymore, so we can get rid of it. And so you can see my name is Zavaar, just like in the example. I open the folder. No, you don't need to create it. You just need to find the folder you're at. So open folder, and then you go to sample, wherever the folder is. So in your case, it's my app. You find that folder, and then you should see like these three things in here. But you don't want to open those. You just want to open your my app folder, and you do click select folder. So if let's say my app, right, and then I'm going to click select folder. Boom, it will open it up. It's already opened up for me because I'm. Yeah, or you could just you don't even need to open it. Yeah, you can just literally open the file itself. Go to the folder, right click, open with Visual Studio Code, and you can just get the file just like that. I like having access to my directory while I'm coding, if that makes sense. So let's move on with expressions. So that makes, I hope that makes sense. In JSX itself is an expression too. So you can kind of render the like HTML too, and that can be assigned as a variable and render it in there. So let's try that out. I'm gonna close out of that. And so you can see that, let's say like welcome. Let's have a variable called welcome, and I'm just gonna, it'll be like a welcoming. So it'll just be a paragraph tag saying, welcome to my site. And we're gonna just get rid of, or we'll say like welcome message. And we're gonna render out our paragraph tag here. So remember, just basics, anything between your like tags, that's what you're writing. Like that's what's gonna be like the actual content of it, in case you don't know HTML. And then this, you need a / and then the element of like that matches here. And that's pretty much like your basics, like XML kind of markup stuff like this, just in case you don't know that. But you can see that now we have our welcome message inside. I'm just gonna do this just so I don't have to keep alt tabbing. You don't need to do this. Okay. We'll just move this down here. So you can see like the welcome message and then welcome to my site. Just like that, the P tag will render. If you want to change this to, let's say, like a heading tag, so H1, that's like the largest heading tag. Make sure you change the closing tag too. You'll get this to be a lot bigger. And that's pretty much that. Moving on. React basics. So we have we can do a lot more with this JavaScript expression stuff. So you can render lists. So we have an array here called my groceries. And if we use the map function, you can actually iterate through each element and return a list. And in case you're not familiar with the map function, there's a sample right here. I can go through it real quick. So you given an array, if you do array.map, and then you take the item within each iteration. So let's say we're at iteration 0. We're gonna take that element. So this X at position 0 will be 1. So it'll do 1 times 2. It'll return this and throw it into map 1 index 0. And so you'll see that for each element, it's just going to run this expression and replace its value, or it'll return that value. This map, like this function right here, returns a new array, same size as your previous array, because you're not adding anything, you're just manipulating the data within. And so you could see that principle still applies, right? So you can return, you can return list elements within your item. And remember, you're using the curly braces to evaluate or to like embed that expression, run that expression within here. And so we're not going to be using iterative rendering. We might, I don't even remember if any examples have it, but that's just one nice thing to know for iteration stuff. And you can see right here, the output would be, the list of your things, and then it would render out a list of what you had. Okay, so moving on with conditional rendering. So this one's a pretty good concept. You have a itinerary operator here. So let's first read these things. So functions that return JSX are called components. Yeah, I can send this URL here. Where did I put it? Yeah, and by the way, this whole presentation is on GitHub. I'll send that link again, and then I'll also send this. I'm not going to make you go to it here, but yeah. So right here, you can see that functions that return JSX are called components, and they allow for code modularity. So kind of a hallmark of React is this way to modularize your code. This itself isn't a good example just because you have components within a component, because you see app, this function app itself is a component, technically speaking, because it's returning, it's returning like HTML stuff. So technically it is a component, but it's like probably the most base level component that you have in your project. But you have these anonymous functions here that are just returning a p tag. And the thing is, remember before we were doing where is this? Yeah, so JSX is an expression too. The difference between this and what that welcome thing was is that we're just assigning a variable. You can't actually call this variable and use it as a what's it called? You can't. Sorry. Yeah, so you can't actually like call the function, right? You can't. This isn't the self isn't like a. It's just a variable, and you see that you have to actually express it. But the thing is, if you were to return a function or return a JSX, like you return the function itself as a kind of element, you can actually use the XML syntax here, which is pretty important. And I know I explained that poorly, but I'll show you. Like you can see right here. So let's say I'll go along with the code, but I'll just write along here. So I don't think I'll just try to go through this. So you have a my age variable here called 19. That's value of that is 19. I am 19, so I wrote this example. And you have two variables here, two constants. One is welcome, one is denied. So welcome is equal to a function that returns a paragraph saying welcome, a paragraph tag, a paragraph element saying welcome to my site. And then you have another variable called denied that's assigned to an anonymous function. And so this is just an arrow function. All this is just returning the H1 tag here saying that you are not allowed on this site. And so down here, you have a itinerary operator is what this called. Yeah, so you call those functions with JSX syntax to render them. And why that is because these are functions, right? So you have a itinerary operator here saying, if my age is greater than or equal to 18, if that condition is true, right, we're going to return the welcome function. This is what that means. And then if that's false, we're going to return the denied function, or return the denied. And so if you return the welcome function, what is going to happen? Anyone interrupt me and say which one is going to happen if this condition is true? What will it render? It's kind of obvious. Yeah, it won't render welcome. It'll render welcome to my site, because that's what this function returns. And you can see down here, right? Welcome to my site. It's not going to return the keywords welcome, because if you look at it, right, welcome itself, like I wish I made this like typable, but let's say like I'm going to make this I'm going to make this an arrow function. You have the constant, yeah. Okay, I hope you guys understand that. So it's not going to return the actual keywords. It'll return the expression or the function itself, the component itself. I need to get the terminology right. I know I interchange them sometimes, but it's going to return that component and render that component. And what that component is the welcome to my site thing. So yeah, so I guess we can move on. So what we just did was we created our own component, two components within our main component. It's not a good practice, because then if you have other components, how are you going to refer to this, what's it called, this component? So a way to do that is just have multiple components and export them. And we'll get into exports later, but this is probably your most ideal way of doing components, just having two separate functions. So you have your app function, which is like your main, and then this export default app, by the way, this just makes it, it puts it, you can use it in another file. And if you look where exactly it uses in the index.js, you can see that it imports the app, which is what this default export is, and it lets you render it. This just does like the rendering stuff, and we don't need to get into that, but pretty much, yeah. So you can see that remember, any component or any function that returns JSX itself is a component. So we can use, so components let you split UI into independent reusable pieces and think about each piece in isolation. So you can see right here that I have my hello message, and it returns a paragraph tag saying hello. If I were to go into my main app function and return the hello message, it's going to use this function definition and use it as like it'll render whatever this function is. It'll call it and render it using this syntax. And you see me, I'll interchangeably use this format right here. These are called like self-closing tags, where I put the backslash and just put welcome backslash, kind of like that. Or you could do like this, where you just have the opening tag and the closing tag and have nothing in between. This is just for concise, like you can be concise about it. And I just put that there in case any of you didn't really know what that means. They're the same thing, they're interchangeable. So let's move on here. You can see that it renders just like so. So you can use component props. And so these are ways to kind of make your, what's it called, your component dynamic, in a sense. Not the component itself, but the reusability of it. So you can reuse certain properties of your component and only replicate just the calling of it. So you can see right here, we have, let me read this. So when React sees an element representing a user-defined component, it passes JSX attributes and children to this component as a single object. We call this object props. So what I mean by that is, let's have a function here called props, or I'll call this welcome message. So this is our function welcome message. And for this to be a component, we have to return some sort of JSX. So for now, I'll just return a empty div. And so what we need is for using props. So let's do it without props. So let's like return like hey or something. And then instead of this component, we could just reuse this function definition. And instead of embedding it, that won't be good. We want to use the actual syntax, just like that. And you'll see that it'll just render it like so. And that's how you use like a component without any props. So now let's pass the props. So props or properties for short allow you to use certain, it allows you to reuse parts of your code. And so now we can do, we can pass in certain properties. So let's say like name is equal to, let's say my name. And then, so how do we use this value name? We take props.name. So like I said over here, it takes as a single object. It takes the attributes as a single object. So this right here, so like, I'll put this in like a comment, right? So props, let's say like we're just kind of analyzing props. So props would be equal, I'm not going to define it, just props itself would be equal to an object with name and my value. That's exactly what it would be. It would be just like, it'd be a dictionary in Python, if you think. That's what the value of props would be. And yeah, and so that would allow you to access props.name because it exists. We've defined it here. And so to do that, we would just do hey props, or to actually render the value out, we do props.name as an expression, and you can see hey Zavaar. And so the benefit with this is now I hate this, so I'm just going to get rid of that. And then if I want to render multiple things, I should always render with the div around all this stuff. And so, yeah, I'm putting parentheses around when I'm rendering it. So I just put a div here because you need to render one thing as like the main thing that you're rendering, and then everything inside is your child. You need to have some sort of like master or some sort of what's it called, parent, just one parent. You can't return multiple things, unfortunately, like that. But you can return like 3 things. So I'll say Zavaar, Mike, and yeah, whatever. And you get the idea. And so you could reuse code like this. And let's say I want to go in and change, maybe the preface or the prefix of what I'm saying, like hello, let's say, and all I would have to go is go into this single function and just change it. And so, oops, sorry, my headphones just turned off. But you could see that all it takes is just to change this simple function definition, and you're returning that. And that's pretty much the basics of props. You can do multiple props, right? You can say like last name. And so I'll say like my last name is Shah, and I won't give it to these other guys. And then how would you like render that? How would you render that where it makes sense? Let's just see, props dot last name. Yeah, I mean, by default, it would just be like a null value. And if you console log a null value, or if you just evaluate a null value, it won't actually print anything. You can also do question mark dot, which is a Babel thing. It's pretty much just makes it a condition. If this property exists within this object, it'll render it based on that. But we don't need to do that. It works just like that. And you can add last names too if you want, and it'll render like that. And so that's how you add multiple properties. Any questions on that? You can't render props and stuff. That's an object. But you can actually render. If you want to actually see what props is, you can do props, and then you can do this thing JSON.stringify, and you can actually see the JSON that I was saying right here. You can see that this is what your props are. Like, this is what you're working with called from your parent. So just a cool little thing, I guess. And so, yeah, that's pretty much just props. And so you could also have component children, right? And please interrupt me if you have any questions about that. I'm happy to go through with it. So component children allow for rendering stuff like between elements. So as you've seen with a lot of native stuff like div, you can have children inside of them. And so how do we utilize children? Like, let's say I don't want this self-close this. Let's say I want to, what's it called? Let's say I want to have children inside of here, just like a div tag or any other tag. I'm going to get rid of props now just so I can show this easily. So how would I use the children? So props.children, right? That's just a reserved thing. Oops, I don't even know what I just imported. Props.children. Oops. Oh yeah, I got rid of it. Props.children would be the value inside each of these things. So I'll say like welcome message. Right now it just would return a div. I guess I can turn it into a heading. Whatever I throw in to my welcome message, it'll just turn it into a heading, if that makes sense. So I'll say like, hey, this is a heading. And you'll see that that's pretty much how that works. And then if I were to get rid of, and you can see that this is between those elements. So you can see you kind of built your own component like that, your own element, if you will. And then I could change this to a smaller heading, H2, and make sure I change the ending tag. It'll be a little smaller. So that's how children work. You can see right here in this example, you can actually render multiple things inside of here. So if I really want to hurt my brain, I could just do like, I guess, just a p tag, which wouldn't really make sense, but I'll just change this back to a div. Pretty much what a div is just like nothing. It's just a division. Pretty much just like a way to section off pieces of HTML code without any, just by itself. That's what it does, I guess. And then I could just do like this, put it in a paragraph tag, and I could put whatever I want, really. I could say it twice. And this is all within here, and it'll render inside of here, if that makes sense. So that's pretty much children. And so props.children, that's what that does. It'll throw it in here. So moving on with that, what's it called? And you'll notice that the code will refresh itself. You don't have to actually refresh it just does it by itself because that's part of the development server that React kind of gives you. So far, all of this stuff has been static. So let's get into the real. This is where it gets a little tough. Let's get it. So yeah, so far all this stuff has been static. Let's introduce hooks. So hooks are the primitives of the React framework that give access to lower level features of the framework within components. So you'll notice that a lot of this, nothing's really been reactive. I haven't been able to click anything or have some sort of data that's changing. A lot of this has just been kind of thrown at my face. Like nothing's changing, nothing's reactive. It's called React. Where's the reactive stuff? Well, let's get into that. So how do we use reactive values? So for reactive values, we can use the useState hook. So useState is pretty much state management, the basics of state management. So why is state management important? What is state management? Let's get into that. So I'm going to first get rid of some of this stuff here. We'll just make this a blank div, and I'll get rid of this. Yeah, I'll keep welcome message. And then we'll call welcome message or something. And then, yeah, we'll get rid of the props itself. So let's say I want to, actually, I'm going to get rid of the welcome message. I'm just kind of thinking of an example right now. So let's say we have a button, right? And I'll give this button, I'll make the button say like plus, right? So this button doesn't do anything. And so let's say we have a variable here called let, like the number of times clicked. So I'll just say clicked equals, or I'll just call it count. So count is equal to 0 initially, right? So how would we count up this button? Intuitively, maybe not intuitively. If you're brand new to this framework, I don't expect you to know this, but or just brand new to web development in general, I don't expect you to know this, but maybe you are, and intuitively you would think, okay, we can just do an on click, right? And this could do something where we have just a function call that would do count plus plus, it'll just +1. And then we can also just have, we can render our count button. So I'll give it a heading tag and do count. And so I'll make this, in case you're not familiar with the arrow kind of functionality, this is just a function that does just count plus plus. I don't want to confuse you guys with some of the syntax. I'll try to keep it as similar as it is in other languages, because JavaScript itself is kind of weird. So I'll just do const handle click. This is a lot better actually. And I guess I can use the normal function notation, I guess, or I mean, they're both anonymous functions, but let's say we do count plus plus, and instead we can just bind that to here. So every time you click the button, it'll run this handle click and it'll increment count. So you would think that this count would change, but it's not going to change. Now there's a reason why, because the thing is, when your component itself changes, it deletes itself and re-renders it. Pretty much. That's not the correct technical way how component lifecycle works. We're going to get into component lifecycle, but that's not how this works. You can't. The problem is that your data doesn't persist, and so the developers at Facebook created this ingenious way. I think it's ingenious. It's probably not really, but it's a way to make data persist throughout the state of your application. So it's this hook called useState. And so why use a state instead of just declaring a temporary variable and redefining that, which is what we did. So in order to show updated content, your component will unmount, remount, and now that data is gone. So what I mean by remount, unmount, pretty much this function is gonna it's gonna delete itself off your main like HTML canvas. It'll delete itself, and then it'll kind of re-render itself. And when it re-renders itself, it runs all this code again. And so you'll see the default value will persist because that's hard coded in. But the actual code itself doesn't like change because you're redefining yourself. You're redefining it every time, every time you interact with it. So it's never going to change. And that's part of the problem that they had. So useState is a way to be able to kind of manage that. And so, so another problem is that our component wouldn't know when to re-render when our temporary variable changes, because well, that's just because it's a temporary variable and it's within the component. You're not going to be able to track that in the grand scheme of things. And you'll see why when we use the useState. So that is why we have states. States allow for the persistence of data within components throughout a component's lifecycle. And we will learn the stages of a component's lifecycle later on. And so in case I haven't thrown any confusing terms, we'll get into lifecycle later on. But let's talk about useState. So this is a very basic example of useState. So pretty much you have a constant here. So let's get into here. So I'm going to get rid of all this stuff. I want to return something just so I don't, the program doesn't cry at me. And I want to import, I don't need to import the CSS file anyways. I want to import React from lowercase React. So we're just taking the React library and because we're going to need it to use useState. So now you can use React.useState. And what is useState? So it's kind of hard to explain just by itself. So useState pretty much gives you a getter function and a setter function, kind of like I think it's encapsulation in like C++. Pretty much you have a non-malleable, well, it's a private variable, and you have a way to manipulate that through its member functions. So you have the useState. So the useState array, or the useState returns an array with a getter and setter function. So this right here, this by itself, if you were to console log this out, it will return an array, an array of 2 elements. And so that's why we can use this, we can use this weird syntax where we have an array defining 2 things. So this is called deconstructing. So this is just a JavaScript thing. So I can do that real quick. You don't have to do this. I just want to show you what deconstructing is. So let's say you have an array. Let's array is equal to like 1 or 2. Let's say this array represents an X and Y axis. So to get it to like do what we were just doing to define this first element as an X variable and this as a Y variable, we can deconstruct this array. So to do that, we can just have a const and then in the array itself, X comma Y equal to the array. And so here you would get the definition, or you would have X and Y itself defined. So X is now 1, Y is now 2. So it's just a way to kind of deconstruct your array. And you can do this with objects too. And an example of that I could think off the top of my head is just using what's called useState. You can literally call useState from here, and because you're deconstructing it from the React framework, but we don't need to do that. That's a little confusing. So we can just do React. It's going to give you a syntax there. But I hope that makes sense, because the syntax sometimes is weird with JavaScript, but it is very nice to know. So we're going to have a getter function and a setter function with our useState. So I'm going to do React.useState. And in this example, we're just going to build like a simple counter app that'll let us press a button, a plus button and a minus button, and it'll deduct or add from our main counter. So we need to have a way to make our data persist through our component. And so we're going to have a count, and that's the getter. Like this is just the actual variable. If you were to console log this out, this will just be the number that it's at. And then we want to have a way to set the count. So that's pretty much how this works. It's just your getter, setter. That's how I think of it in the array, and it's deconstructing it from the useState. And so inside the useState, I'm going to put a 0 here. That's the default number. So if I were to console log, or I keep saying console log, if I were to just print out count, it'll just be 0 by default. And so that's just the default. You'll see it right here too. It's just the default number. And so how do we change count, and how do we make it persist? Set count, like let's say we want to set it to 5. I don't think you can't do that by default, but you'll see how that works. That's weird how that doesn't work. That's really weird. Yeah, it doesn't matter because we're gonna make it reactive anyways. Oh yeah, you can't do it within this context. That makes it okay. It doesn't matter. But anyways, here's you're able to read this variable. Now, how do we manipulate this variable? So you can see, yeah. So the count constant. So this is like I'm referring to this. The constant itself is your getter value. It's getting it from the count state. So it's getting it from this state itself. So the set count is a function that's that is your setter function for the count state. This is the only way to manipulate your count variable state. Only way, there are other ways, but this is the only way in terms of like simplicity. Whenever your count variable is changed, those changes will be reflected in real time. So that's the biggest thing. This is the biggest thing because we can actually track when this count gets changed and reflect it in real time. And so you can see that there's a counter example here. And you'll see how we built that. So pretty much what we're going to want to do is we want a way to increment our state. So I'm going to have just a function here called increment. Increment is equal to a function, arrow function that just does set count. I'm not going to return the function. I'll just do set count count plus 1, right? Because we're just going to make it increment by 1. And then we can do the same thing for decrement. Decrement. I hope I spelled that right. And then we'll just do count minus 1. And so now we need a way to call this. So again, we can use what I was talking about earlier, buttons. So button, and I'll say like plus. And so the content within is like what you do. So this doesn't actually do anything right now. Let's do on click is equal to, you need curly braces around here because this is a JavaScript that will evaluate. You want this to be evaluated. So we're going to do increment, which is our function. We're binding this kind of action to when we click our button. And you'll see when I click it, it'll increment up. So our state is actually changing, and in real time, the count is being re-rendered. Like this variable is changing while the component itself is remounting and doing whatever it needs to do through its life cycle. And so you can do that with the minus too. And so the difference that would be is you just change that and then change it with this. And in cases, I'm sorry about I'll do this like a normal function. Yeah, an anonymous function. I don't even know if that will work, but this is that arrow syntax. It's the same thing. This does the same exact thing. It just plus and minus 1. That's all it does, right? We're just binding an action to a button, and it's manipulating the state. The reason it wasn't working earlier, when I was doing it here, this is just a theory. I think it's because the state, because this gets called multiple times, and you can't do that for many reasons throughout the life cycle, right? And we'll get into life cycle. I keep saying life cycle. You probably have no idea what it means. We'll get into it. But pretty much that's how you build a simple counter. Hopefully it makes sense. So what you're doing is every time you click like the minus button, for instance, it'll run this function. What this function does is it runs set count, takes the current count, and subtracts it by 1. And same thing with increment. We have a function. It'll run if I press this button, and it'll do set count. It'll take my current count and add it to 1. And that's how you have your persistent data. It's not very persistent, but it is kind of a way to keep your data persistent in terms of short term. We'll get into data persistence later, because that's another thing. If we have time, I don't even know if we're gonna have enough time. Yeah, so set count. So useEffect, this was a pretty important one. This is also one that's pretty tricky. So each component in React has a life cycle, which you can monitor and manipulate during its 3 main phases. So the 3 main phases of a React component are mounting, updating, and unmounting. So we can get into here. So, excuse me. Yeah, so we pretty much have reactive useEffect. So I'm gonna I'll write this along with you because it is a little confusing just off the top here. Move that over there. Okay, so we have, I'll leave this. I'll actually leave this here. So I'll put a comment here, say like useState, and then I'll have another comment here saying useEffect. And you'll see why this is important. So react.useEffect, you just kind of call it within your function. You can't call it anywhere else. You can't call it outside of your function. You have to call it in your function, not in the return, just in your component, just in your component. Like here is perfect. So react.useEffect, what is this? So pretty much by default, if you have so it's first, if we go into the typing here, can I get into the typings? Yes, okay, so pretty much its first parameter is a callback function. And then its second parameter is a dependency array. And we can get into that. So and a callback is pretty much just, the callback itself is pretty much just a function that returns either nothing or a destructor function. Oh, destructors, that's from C++, right? And other stuff. Yeah, they have those here too, because they're pretty important. It's a pretty important principle. So how do we create a callback? So all it is just a function, like they said in the type definition. It's a function that returns a void, so nothing, or a destructor. So in this case, we'll just, we won't get into destructors right now. We'll just have a void function here. And let's just say we want to console.log, what's it called? We just want to console log like something. So this console log, if I were to do this right now, it'll console log whenever our state changes. So state changes. I'll just console log that out. And then to see our console log, I'm going to do right here in the browser, I'm going to do right click inspect element and go over to my console, my dev tools, and you can see that the state changes. If I do minus, you see that state changes. If I do, every time I manipulate the state, right? This is, we're doing this as a state. We're changing the state. Now you can have multiple states. There's, you know, you can have multiple counters. You can have multiple stuff, but this is just like a way to track every single state change. Now that might not be ideal, but you can see that state changes twice initially because when your component mounts, it does an extra. I say it in the comments. So let me move this over here. You can see that this will run when the component is first mounted and when the state changes. So it'll run it twice. And so let's run a teardown. Let's do a teardown function. So to do a teardown function, it's pretty much like a destructor in C++. Like when your program or your object gets deallocated in memory, it'll you can run a piece of code in case you've taken those classes. All you do to create a destructor is return a function. And in this case, we'll just do console.log component destroyed. And this is kind of important because it tells you how React kind of works. So you can see that your component destroys, you didn't even do anything. So every time the state changes, your component gets destroyed and then it gets remounted. So initialized, destroyed because there's an update, and then there's your second update because it's doing it the second time. So if I were to press 1, it's going to do it. Let me clear it out. So let me try this again. So I'm going to press 1 here. I'll make this bigger. Boom, component destroyed because it realized that this count value has a new state, like the state itself has changed. So now this has to re-render. So this whole component re-renders just because this value changes, and it'll reflect those changes in real time, and it'll say the state changes. So you can see that every time your component updates, your state change, or every time your component updates, it's because your state changes, and those changes have to be reflected in real time. So those components are destroyed. I just said that really fast. I'll say it again. Okay, so every time your state changes, your component gets destroyed to update itself and make those changes again. So how do we track specific updates, or like updates specific to your count? Let's say we want to just track when our count state changes, because you can have multiple states. Right now, this is for if any state changes. So you can have like a whole nother count. This would give me an error because these are, let's say I count 2, set count 2, count 2, count 2, increment 2, increment 2. You can have multiple states. I just wanted to do that just so you could see that you can have multiple states in your, and this would just track if any of the states, any of these 2 states changes. But how do we track if only one state changes? So to do that, you can have a dependency array. And so here, after your anonymous function definition, or your callback function, sorry, you can have an array here. And in the array, you put in your state, the state of whatever you're trying to check. So this would just be count. And so you'll see that I'll refresh it, I'll clear it, and I'll call this, count state changed. just like that. And you'll see that our count state has changed. It's changed because, well, I didn't even show you. So initially, right, this is just the initial mounting. I'm going to press once. You'll see that my count state changed. And then my count state changes every time I'm manipulating, anytime I'm interacting with this specific state. This specific, like just this state itself, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Because you're using the dependency array. And so that's pretty much it for useEffect. We're going to get into useEffect if we have enough time. The TODO app, we have some things we're going to build. We're going to try to have enough time building. I need to fly through this faster. Let's see. So useEffect, you can see that pretty much component destroys, the state is changed, count is, you can see that this is pretty much the cycle of how it works. That's as I just showed you. So useRef, this is a little more simple. All we're doing is this is how we take values from inputs. So useEffect or useRef allows us to interact with the JS DOM more easily. This lets us take values from other elements to parse user input. So I don't need to type this all out, but pretty much what you're doing here, I'll give you a rundown of the code. What you're doing is you have a count, you have a state right here, similar to what we just did. Instead of the button clicking, we have a one button, and we also have a useRef. Initially, it's null. So we're gonna how do we use this use reference? We're gonna use, if we put in right here on the input, we'll have a reference tag or a reference, what's it called, property, and set it to this variable. So now the my input variable is binded to this element right here. You can't bind multiple things. They're pretty much married. This input tag and this variable are like married. They're like together. And so now you can get any information about this input tag with this variable in my input. And so let's say the user presses the handle or just presses this button set. It'll run this function handle click. And this is just an arrow function that pretty much takes my input dot current dot value, which is just the value inside of the input. And if that exists, we're just going to set the count, which is what we were doing with this right here, decrementing and incrementing. It's just doing it directly from user input, from the my input value, taking it directly from the input. So I hope that makes sense. I don't have to skim through that, but yeah, any questions about this or previous? Just DM me or whatever, or interrupt. I don't mind. I hope this is making sense. So useContext. This one's a little tricky, but it is important. So one of the things, so I'll just read this out. So context can be a bit tricky, but very important when scaling your application up. So contexts allow for sharing data between components without using props. So if you've noticed, we've been having to use props. I'm just gonna copy all this, throw it in a thing, and I'll just get rid of this for now. And let's say I have just a sample function or sample component, like hello message. This will just be a hello thing that'll return a div saying props dot name, I guess we can use, and it'll just return props dot name. And I'll do this right here. I'll get rid of this stuff. Props. Oops. So we're gonna use the hello, same as the function name, and this will have a property of name equal to, I don't know what I'm doing, my name. And so the only way for this parent, let's say I just have the variable here, let name equal to my name, and then let's use name equal. I know that's kind of confusing here. I'll just do my name just so you don't get confused here. So you can see that this data from this component, my main app component, is getting passed through as a property, as a prop to over here. And so now this data is being over here. So this gets a little convoluted really fast if you have a lot of different components that are nested upon each other. And so you'd have to go child to child. If you want one prop two generations above to just share that data. So contexts allow you to share data between components without using props. So context providers allow for the use of useContext. Now notice how these all have been useRef, useEffect. This is our other thing that we're going to learn, useContext, and must be the child of a provider to use its values. What exactly does that mean? You can see right here. So to initialize our context, you do react dot create context. All this code is the same. We just have a default count. And so this will be the default variable. It'll just be 0. And we have this because then we can use it for our state. And so we're just creating the context with the default value of 0. And here's a code that you're already familiar with. We're just taking the default count so that this context and this state can be the same on pretty much on startup. And so the difference is now you see how this counter display property is taking the state of count, but count isn't even in here. Like the state or the original state isn't in here. We're not using useState. We're using useContext, using counter context, which is that thing that we initialized up here, kind of like binding. And so you see that you have a counter context dot provider, and we're passing the value of count, which is our state, which is changing, right? And it's being rendered in real time within this component. You see that right here. It's being, let me see. So I'll just go in order here. So right here, you have the counter context dot provider. This itself is what's it called? It's a component, and it has. Remember how I said it has to be the child of a provider to use its value. So this counter display is a child of the counter context provider to be able to use its value. So that it's taking this value, it's throwing this value in here, and you see that there's no props involved. That's the essence of context. So you're using react.useContext and taking that value for from the provider. Why would this be better than using props? Yeah, so let's say I have like a ton of nested components. First of all, like I try to imagine it because I don't want to type out like 20 different like properties, 20 different like props themselves. I pretty much, you'll notice that if let's say you have one component called, let's just say you have one component that like your master, right? So let's say this is like the main, the parent component, and you have a property here. And so let's say 2 generations down or 3 generations down, you have like some sort of other element or some sort of other component, sorry. You have another component that needs this same value, but all the other children in there that could be whatever don't need that value. So what you're doing is you'd have to pass in all this data through pretty much through all the other children that might not even need the data. And so you'd be passing a lot of unnecessary information, and you'll see that a lot in larger scaled applications like React Redux. They kind of take care of state management using providers, because if everything were to be passed through props, your application would be very messy. It would just be because you'd have to define the props here. You'd have to tell them, okay, I don't need this prop for this specific component. And you'll notice this in state management or when you scale up your applications, that just passing data between different components is a hassle, and it's not good if you're having to rely on 2 generations above in terms of like elements or components. It's just not a good. It's not concise. You might lose some data. Well, you're not going to lose data, but you're just going to be passing on a lot of unnecessary information to other props or to other components that don't need those props. In case that makes sense. It's really hard to explain. I cannot give you an example because this would be, like I said, it's good when you're scaling up your applications, because it's just because props, too many of them can convolute a lot very quickly. And so this just keeps it concise, because you can just take one value from your provider and use it within that component, and maybe another child in here might not need it, or above actually rather, they might not need it. It's pretty much like a pick and choose. Like if your component is set up to use context, then that's good for you. It'll work. But let's say you have another component here between the provider that doesn't have useContext. That value is still available, but the fact that they're not using useContext, that specific child, it's not going to be ever read. So that you're not really like, it's just more concise. I don't know how else to explain it. I'm really bad at explaining useContext. I've had to use it in scaling up things because like I've used React Redux, which kind of does this kind of thing, but without it uses a separate reducer kind of logic. And it's pretty important when you're managing multiple kinds of states. You do not want to do that with props. That is just one thing. So like I was talking about reducers just now, this is kind of an advanced concept. We're not going to get into this just because we don't have enough time, but you can also change their value within nested components. So you'll realize in here, all we're doing is reading the count state. You're just reading the count state. There's a way to actually manipulate it, and that's using reducers. That's not the only way. Reducers are just a way to manage a ton of different states. And you can have states for your UI. You can have states for a ton of other stuff. It's a pretty big concept. I don't want to get too too crazy about it because I want to get into some of the examples. But again, this topic is beyond the scope of this discussion. Here's this cool little GIF of how React Redux worked. It's pretty insane, but it's cool. You can see that the state here, that's something you're familiar with now, hopefully. And then your view is like what the user sees. And there's just kind of this cycle of information. But yeah, so reducers and context, those are a good combination. Here's another advanced concept, routing. You can have multiple, I'll just show you the GIF. We're not gonna have time to go over that, but pretty much if I click on contact, it'll go to my, my localhost 3000/contact, and it'll render whatever directory I'm at, whatever my location is on the website. So you see that it's completely dynamic. This is how you make multiple paged websites, because by default React is kind of a single application, just a single paged application. You can see that I just have, I could quickly go over this. I have four components that represent pages. So I have my home component, my about component, or yeah, home page, about page. These are all components. So, and I'm just using that as a way to kind of render zipper pages. And then a 404 page. And then here, all I'm doing is we have a link that'll just redirect. If I click on it, it'll go to slash. If I click on it, it'll go to /about. If I click on it, it'll go to /contact. And then to actually manage like the rendering based on whatever path you're at, this is route element. The element that gets rendered if you're on path, which is if you're on this path, if you're on the /about path, which is if you click this link, it'll render the about and so on and so forth. That's just a simple way. I don't want to go into that just because we don't have enough time to do all that. So, ooh, that was a lot. Okay. So any questions before we move on to trying to build some of this stuff? You can unmute or text. It doesn't matter. I want to be on the same page. Yes, stuff. We're gonna do some cool stuff. So if you have any questions about certain concepts, just DM or whatever, or unmute. So let's try to build a BMI calculator in React. So this is a good starting thing, starting project. So to do that, let's create a new React app. Yeah, I'll just create a new one. So I'm gonna go back to my desktop. I don't want to confuse again, so I'll just close out of this stuff. I'm gonna keep the sample there just because we want it. And then let's say you open up your command terminal. I'm gonna cd to my desktop because that's how it works on Windows for me. I'll do npx create React app, and then I'll call this BMI calc. That's what the project name is going to be. I'm going to enter, and it'll start creating that. In the meantime, you guys can do the same. Get to your desktop, or wherever you want to do your project. It does not matter where you do it. Just got to know where it is. That'll take a little bit. And again, the code. Yeah, I wrote the code in TypeScript just so that when I go through it right now, it'll be a lot easier to explain what certain things do. So it might be a little confusing to follow along. I would just follow along what I'm doing on screen. Just follow along, I guess. Or if you want to get into the typings, then you could go in through the repo itself. And I'll upload this code that we do later on too, and that'll be in JavaScript. TypeScript is pretty much just like a superset of JavaScript and allows for static typing, which are good for documenting and saying things about what certain components do and whatever. So that should be done now. Yeah, it's done. So I'm gonna go to I'll open up my VS Code and I'm gonna do open folder. Go to my BMI calc and I'll just select folder. No, I don't care about that previous thing. And here it is now. I'm going to click F10 to open up my console and do npm start to get my development server in. So yeah, I'm just going to let that start. And so I guess we can start looking at some of the files. So we're going to use some of this default code just because it opens up. Yeah, okay. Running low on time here. Okay. So you have our, our default app here. I'm just gonna close out of this stuff. You can't find the BMI calc. Did you call it something else? Did you check the output to see if it's what's it called? If it any errors? It might be screwing up because of the hyphen too. I'm not sure. No errors. I would just if you're still there, just do cd BMI calc, just like that. And if it gives you an error, it must have created in a separate folder. Yeah, if you open up the terminal, it would have done it over here. It would have done it like in this directory, and then you would do cd BMI calc. So if I were to like open up my terminal default and then do cd BMI calc, you would have gotten, you're probably in your directory. So open up a new terminal, do cd BMI calc, try that. I didn't install it there, mine's on my desktop, but hopefully it is in your directory. Okay, that's good. You found it then, right? Hopefully. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I would just go to your go to wherever it is and just open up code through there. You can move it later. It doesn't matter where you do it. You just have to know where it is so you can edit the files and do npm start. So our it works. So let's get started with the code. So I'm going to get rid of some of this stuff. I'll keep the React things. I'll get rid of everything here, like the learn React. So all we're left with is a logo. And I'll have a heading 3 tag, which is like a kind of small, what's it called? Like kind of small, like heading. And I'll say like BMI calculator and React. Oops. And so you'll see that it just renders like the heading, and I can just do this for now. Whatever, I'll just alt tab. And let's see here. So we want to be able to type, like we want to be able to calculate BMI. That's what a BMI calculator is, pretty much calculating your body mass index. So 3 things we need from the user. I guess 2 things technically is their weight. We'll just do pounds. We like the conversion to metric later. We also need a height. Those are, excuse me. Those are 2 things you're going to need. And this will be in inches or I don't know what I was saying there, but this will be in inches, and that'll be in pounds. So we need 2 kind of inputs to deal with that. So or I'm going to say 3 because because no one knows their height in inches. So we're going to ask them like, are you your feet and then your inches, kind of like, are you 5'10" or whatever, and we'll make that conversion. So I'll quickly do this here. So input lets you use inputs, like lets you type stuff in. That's pretty much what inputs are. And I'll do this real quick. So I don't have to keep alt tabbing. Oh, this sucks. Okay, I'll just do that. Okay. And then this is a type of number. We don't want people to be typing in that or anything that's not numerical. So this will just make it so that you can't type any E. There's like a scientific notation thing, so I guess that works. But we'll just make it so that they're only locked to numbers, and we want this to be self-closing because you can't. Inputs don't have children. And we will give this a value of placeholder. So we have 2 right now. 2 inputs. This will be our weight, or this will be our height in feet, and this will be our height in inches. So I'll say this right here: placeholder is equal to, yeah.
How do you do comments inside the function? I forgot.
Yeah. So it's just you have like the braces, and then you could have your code. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And if you do, I don't know, like for me, it's control tilde. That's how I do like block codes. I think that's custom for me though. But I know control question mark comments out an entire line, and that's how comments work in JSX. I never even thought about that, but yeah, that's how you do that. So I'll write this out. So this will be our height in feet, and this will be a placeholder. You'll see what a placeholder does just in a sec. And this will be our height in inches. You'll see that now we have 2 things that have like placeholders in here, and I want this to be on the same line. So to do that, I'll make a div. I'll put this inside of a div. So I'll get rid of this comment because I think we know. And I'll give this div a style. So this is how we do styling in React. It's pretty much just an object with your properties. So it's a little different from CSS, but it's just represented in a JavaScript object. So to do that, we're going to do display. To put this on the same line, we're going to do display : inline block. And so you'll see that it'll be on the same kind of same row, or like same line, if you will. And so this will be our feet, our height in feet, and our height in inches. So like I'll be 5'11". That'll work just like that, and we'll make that conversion later. And we also need one more kind of input. Remember, weight. So we need to ask the user for their weight. So that'll be weight in pounds. And so, yes. Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, so we have 3 input values, right? So how do we get those 3 input values? Remember, useRef. So we're going to do useRef. We're going to take the values from there. So to do that, we need to import React from lowercase React. That's how we get access to the library itself. And so to do useRef, we're going to do, let me find it. Okay, so const weight input is equal to use react.useRef. And initially this will be null, but we'll let's bind this reference to our weight. So I'll try to make this spaced out better. Let's add a space here, and then I'll add space there. Or I guess this is a child of the div. So this will be our height, and then this will be our weight. Okay. And then we're going to do, just like in the example, ref is equal to our weight input, just like that. So we're binding that value to there, and then we need 3 more inputs. So we need one for height, height in feet, and we also need our height in inches, because we have 2 different kind of what's it called, reference, or 2 different inputs. So our first input will be height in feet, and then our second input would be our height in inches. And we're going to get into how we calculate that. So we also need to have a button to say like, okay, we're going to calculate, let's calculate whatever we're doing. So a way to execute the logic. So we're going to have a button here saying calculate. And this button, it has a styling on it, but we don't need to do that right now. On click, it'll have so on click pretty much, I've already talked about this, but whenever you click something, it'll run a function. So let's find what function we're going to do, or let's define the function we're going to do. So it'll be const handle click. So whenever we click, it'll run this function. So we'll do handle click. So whenever we click the button, what we're going to want to do is we're going to have our weight. So to get the weight value, we want to do weight. We're just going to do let weight equal to weight input dot current dot value. Okay, so I'm going to put a question mark here. Actually, you know what? Yeah, you should put a question mark here. That's just Babel syntax. It'll mean if that value exists or not. And we'll make sure. Let me see if there's a default. Yeah, there's a default. So I'm gonna have it so that like a default value. So we'll give this a default value of 5, 7, which is I think my height. That's pretty much 6 feet. So I might as well just. I'm kidding. Okay. So 5, 7, and then for the default weight in pounds, I'll make it a default value of, I'm 150, I'm 145 last time I checked. And so you'll see that there always will be a value in here, except for when you get rid of it. But we'll just make sure that we have default values in. Now that I think about it, I don't really like having default values because now the user has no idea what this means. So I'll just get rid of it. But now you know how default values work now. Yeah, so it should get rid of that. If I were to refresh it. Yeah, okay. So let's go back to here. So let's get all of the inputs that we have. Remember, these are binded to our inputs. Let's get all their values. So let height in feet ft equal to height in feet dot current question mark dot value, and then I'll have another one, height in, I guess just height in works, inches, whatever. And then we want to use this bind the useRef and take the value from this input, right? So we're going to take that value. We're first going to check if weight. So if weight exists and height exists, or height inches, and if height feet. So if any of these are all existing, then that's good. We'll continue our code here. If it's not, we'll do an else statement saying like alert, please fill out all fields. Okay. And this just is going to check if all these are, all of these values exist. So if they do, then we can get into our BMI calculation. So let's actually create a function above our component. This will just be like a helper function. So like function, just do const calc BMI is equal to, what do we need for a calculation of BMI? It's pretty much just, it's pounds. So I'll put this down here, and then BMI is equal to, what's it called? I have it written right here. Yeah, it's equal to pounds divided by inches squared. And then all that multiplied to the constant 703. And the reason why this is just because that's how you convert to metric, because that's how, because we're imperial, because we're awesome or whatever. I don't know. But this is just how to make it in metric, how to make the BMI work in metric. So I didn't come up with this constant. I just found it on Google. but that's just the formula. So now we can just have weight. There's two parameters in this function, and our height, just height. And hope I didn't spell height anywhere wrong. I always switch up those e's. And then we want to be able to return a string. This will return a string. So we need to do 703, all that multiplied by our weight in parentheses, and then weight divided by our height times, or squared. That's just how you do squared. And then all that, I guess I can just do this. All that dot to fixed. What this does is it says it right here, number of digits after the decimal point. So this just makes it so that what's it called? Our value won't go off the grid. We could actually just use math dot like round or whatever. That works too. But I'm just gonna put this entire number around a to fixed, and I'll make it 1 decimal point. So this is just a formula for calculating a BMI. So now I can make that calculation, right? Because we have calc BMI, and what we're doing is we want to take the values from here. So what do we need? We need a weight and a height. So for weight, what we want to do is parse float. We want to take the number, because originally everything in an input is a string. So we're just turning this into a float. And so we'll make this weight. So that's our first thing. And then our second thing is our height. So we have height in feet and height in inches. And so to just quickly add those all up together, we'll do like parse, or I guess I'll make like a temporary variable called like let height equal to parse float height in feet. So how many inches are in a foot? It's just 12. All of that plus the other inches that we have left. So this will be parse float height in inches, just like that. And now we can use our height. And this should already be a number, so we don't need to parse it, but we already did the parsing over here. So this just turns our height into inches, because no user actually knows how many inches there are unless they're crazy good at math. So this just makes that conversion. And what are we going to do with this value? Well, we want to display it onto the onto the screen. So we have a state, right? We just learned how state management works somewhat, hopefully. And so let's have some logic here, or let's define our state. Let's call this header. And so this would be like whatever our BMI is. We'll set the header to whatever our BMI is. And this will be set header is equal to react.useState. And initially the state, we can just make it null, or we can make it an empty string. Doesn't matter, it won't get ran. And let's actually print out, let's use some conditional formatting here. Let's see here. So we're gonna do we're gonna evaluate a function here, or evaluate some JavaScript expression here. So we're gonna do header. If there's a header, right, we're gonna return h1, an h1 tag saying BMI colon like our header, pretty much, right? It'll just be whatever the value of our header is. And this just means if this value exists, then return this. Otherwise, just don't do anything. That's pretty much what this and logic means. So yeah, so now we have to set our header, right? And so we learned with state management, all it is we're just doing like, you can just say let BMI equal to that, and do set header BMI. So let's see if that works. Let's put in like I'm 145, 5'7". So my BMI is 22.7. And so we can actually add some conditional styling. So let's say, because there's the website that I used when I made this example, it lets you actually classify some of the BMI categories. So if your BMI is between any of these ranges, it'll be under these classifications, right? It'll be under those categories. So we can actually, I can do this real quickly. I'll have another function here that'll classify what weight category you're in. So let's say const BMI category is equal to, you need a BMI, right? And that's a number, and it'll return, well, let's check. So if your BMI, so we can open this up. Oh, dismiss that for now, this console. There we go. Okay, so if your BMI is less than, so if BMI is less than 18.5, return. So if it's less than 18.5, you're underweight. So else if, or elif, no, that's Python, else if BMI is greater than or equal to 18.5, and I'm just looking the same thing you're looking at right here. So if it's greater than or equal to 18.5 and BMI is less than 25, then you are considered normal weight. Okay, else if your BMI is greater than or equal to 25 and your BMI is less than 30, then you are considered overweight. Okay, else if, or no, else, anything greater than 30 is obesity. You should probably exercise or something, I don't know. Return obese. So if you're any of these categories, it'll return whatever. It'll return based on your category. So we can actually do the same kind of logic here. And let's say I don't want to render it here. Let's say like if there's a header, right? So if someone actually calculated a BMI, then we'll return a paragraph tag saying you are. And so now how do we call this function that we just defined? I'll make this full screen now. How do we call this function? We're just going to take the BMI category and call it right here, and then throw in our header that we got, which is, remember the state is the actual BMI. So you'll see that you are normal weight. Let's make myself like really fat. So like 300 pounds. It says you're obese, and my thing goes up just like that. And so you can also do this with some conditional formatting, and I'll do this real quickly. We can make this yellow. If you're normal weight, it'll be green. If you're overweight, we'll make it yellow. And then if you're obese, we'll make it red. And then we can use this value. So I'll get rid of this because now this won't make sense. And you'll see that right here. So right here where we actually render our heading, we can make this based on the color. So to change color, we just need to change the style. And this is an object changing the color property to BMI category, which is a function. Because remember, BMI category, this function returns yellow, green, or red. It returns any of those, and your color can be set to that. So if you're thinking what I'm thinking, you know, your color now, your color property, when the state changes, will also change, and it's all in real time. You see, create, my BMI goes down. Let me go back to normal. I'm normal weight, and let's say like I'll be underweight if I'm like 120 probably. No, I'm good. All right. And then let's say like 100 pounds. You'll see that I'm underweight, and it'll give me a yellow warning, just like that. That's pretty much how you build a BMI calculator. Wish we had, oh my God, I went over time a lot, took a lot of time. That's pretty much how you build a BMI calculator. Any questions about that project specifically? I could quickly show you how to build your application too and deploy it. So I'm going to open up a new terminal inside of that same folder. If you do npm run build, it'll start to build your application. And so it'll say creating an optimized production build. And so it'll actually build your application out into a ton of HTML files that you can deploy on a web server. Boom, that was quick. So you'll see a new folder pops up called build, and here are your files. So you can deploy this on a web server, you deploy this on a GitHub repo. It's pretty much just an index, or not index. It's just pretty much like your files, or it's like you would put this in an Active Directory or wherever you want. So I can do, like I have Python installed, so I know I could do Python and http.server, I believe. Yeah, okay. And then what I would do is I'd go to http localhost : what port is this, 8000, and you'll see that it's running on this web server right here. And this is, you'd see that React, I have React developer tools, and it'll say that this page is using a production build of React, versus if I were to go to the development server, it'll be saying like warning, this page is using a development build of React. And so that's how you kind of deploy your application. Well, not how you deploy it, but how you build your applications. And so these, you would throw this into some sort of a directory, some sort of web server, maybe nginx or whatever you want to use. You can upload it there, whatever free hosting solution. That's pretty much how you deploy. You just copy this directory. You can run scripts that'll do it for you. GitHub has a really nice integration. I think it's called GH Pages. Yeah, you can use the GH Pages to kind of push your things onto a GitHub, or onto GitHub Pages pipeline. So that's how you build that. I guess, let me see. We don't have that much time. I don't know. You guys want me to do another example? I would do the emoji searcher. That one's interesting because you use components of that one. This one you didn't use any components. You just used your basic raw one. So I don't know. Do you want me to go over more React concepts, or you want me to build another one, or you want to just get off? Too much. Brain hurts. I don't know. You guys pick. This will be a vote. I don't know how to make a vote. Oh, I have to log in. Never mind. All right. Let's see. So I don't want to create a poll. Whatever. I'll try to start on the emoji searcher thing. I really wanted to get to the TODO app. That one was pretty interesting, but because that uses context and stuff, but we just ran low on time. Maybe I should do like a part 2 of this. But anyways, let's see here. Just give me 1 second. I'm looking. Yeah, so I guess I can get started. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, you got to start somewhere, right? And so, I don't know, React, I've used it for like a year now, pretty inconsistently, but through time, you can really get to build some awesome stuff with it. It's a very popular framework. Do the TODO one, it's gonna take a while. Let me see. I mean, I don't know if it's gonna take a while. So this is the repo. Pretty much what it is let's see, pretty much just you can add to-dos, like and this uses data persistence. Like I added these 2 things like a week ago, so you see that it persists using your local storage. You can see that my to-do data is still there. If I were to delete it, or if I were to just manipulate it through here, you can see how like persistence works. Boom, it's gone. I could add saying like homework. I have to do that. These are 2 things that I still need to do, but data persistence is something that we were gonna get through. I guess I can try to go through with it with the remaining time that we have, kind of just through the repo. And this repo, I'll send it in again. That if you want to look at it, this is in TypeScript. I'm sorry, I didn't write it in JavaScript. Maybe I should later on. But so I'll look at the TODO app quickly. So the TODO app is pretty much simple single page application for managing tasks. So pretty much what it does is you have let's see here. So you have pretty much an input file. Am I on the right branch? Oh, okay, I was. Okay, so I have, let me go over here. Let's see here. So you have a state here. Where is it? Right here. So you have a state that is an array, I believe, which is like, so remember your getter setters, you have a to-dos and you have your set to-dos. So if you were to add a to-do, probably with the button, and you can see that there's also a provider in here for using state management. You can access your to-dos, and this is also called a dispatch function. So remember I said you can manipulate your state within nested components if you use Redux or not Redux, reducers. But here you can also just, if you want to do something really simple, you could just have pass in a function, because remember, look, so remove to do is a function that is bonded with the context provider, that so that subcomponents can remove to dos, like in list.tsx, which is just a component. List. This is a component, right? So you have a component here that lets you take in the value to dos and remove to do, and it uses the context of your parent, right? Which is the provider, which is what I explained with providers. So that's pretty much. I know this is TypeScript too, so the syntax might be a little interesting for those who've never seen it, but bear with me here. So to add a to do, it's going to check if your current to dos, which is an array of empty. I can go to context 1 sec, just so that context. Excuse me. All right. Yeah. So you have an empty array, and this is this is that create context stuff. Remember, that's where over where is it? Yeah, this is that same thing, the create context. I just have it in a different file. You'll notice that you should always have different files for different functions and for different components. Like I have a component folder here, TSX, that's just TypeScript XML, and pretty much what you're doing in here is you're exporting your default function, which is your default component, to make this the default export. And what that means is that you can easily access it in your app, in your main file, where you're you see right here, I'm just importing list from components.list or from components/list. And it's a really good idea to kind of modularize everything, kind of put code in separate files, put code in separate folders rather. And because you'll see that once the complexity of your program increases, I know I haven't been able to give any good cases of complexity. The only complex thing that I've ever made in React is my portfolio. So you can see that this is a React project. And you can see that I have a ton of custom components, right? I have like a lot in here. And so each component does their own thing. Each component has their own state. And it's really important because this component's like 150 lines long. Obviously, I want to put it in a separate file. So if I have a problem, I can just go to this file instead of just having it in my main folder. And yeah, so it's important when you're scaling up to have, what's it called, to put your code in separate like files. And I guess I can show you how to do that real quick. Like, let's say I want to throw in, what's it called? Let's say I want to throw in my, like, I'm trying to think. I could just do like this stuff, this really basic stuff. Oh yeah, this isn't that editor. Okay, so let's say I just want to move this stuff into a separate file. So I'll create a folder in my source folder called components, and I'll create a file called like headers, or we already have a thing called header. We'll call this like title.js. And this will just be a title, like stuff that's in there. So we're going to do export default function title. And this will just return those things. Well, you have to actually return it inside of something else. And then logo is not defined because we have logo defined up here. So I'm going to copy the logo. And you could also import logos in case you didn't know, just literally raw files, and use that in there. So now how do we use this title in here? You would go over here and import. Import title. I can just press enter and it auto completes it. It'll import it from the components. And so now to use what we just got rid of, we would just do title, just like in the sample. And oh shoot, oh yeah, so this is probably like one directory back. Yeah, so yeah, it wasn't recognizing where it was because this is one directory in, and that was referring to its relative directory. Yeah, that's also annoying. But you can see that now we've kind of modularized a piece of our code in here. And so you can see that like in my example, my portfolio, let's look at my main file, which is a mess. But you can see that like I have a ton of, these are all like custom components except for like routes and stuff, which we kind of learned about. But you can see that all my stuff, like my footer, my, what's it called? What else is here? Is there anything even going on here? Yeah, so yeah, like everything renders based on the page. So it's completely modularized based on what you're using. And you see the use effect being used here. If my state, I'm not going to explain that because that's a whole nother thing. You can have sub values. That's what I was talking about, sub values. Different states can have different sub values. But anyways, if the location changes, remember this is in my dependency array, it'll run this piece of code just like that. And yeah, that's I don't even know what I was talking about, but yeah, you can see a ton of components get used and thrown around in certain certain files. And so it's really important to have different kinds of to modularize your code, because that's why this framework is so important. It's because it is incredibly modular, and it's you can use it, you can reuse a lot of the same code within other files and stuff. And yeah, that's pretty much, I guess that's a pretty lame ending, but yeah, this is an important framework, especially if you want to get like a front end job. Really important framework to learn. Library React.js. This has been my React.js library walkthrough. I know I kind of had to run through a lot of things. I was just there's a lot. I didn't even realize how long this would be, but I don't want to go over time. I don't want to waste your guys' time. So I guess that's all I have. If you have any questions, stick around. I don't mind answering them. I know I skimmed through a lot. Again, I'm willing to answer anything. But yeah, that's all I have. I'm sorry. I wanted to go through some of the other projects. The emoji searcher, that one is interesting too, because let's see. Can I go back all the way? Yeah, so emoji searcher, you can actually search an emoji based on the keywords that you type, and there's this library that gives you a whole bank of emojis, and you could create like an emoji searcher. I didn't actually build it out. Actually, I think I did. I can just do npm start, and I'll just quickly show you the code for this. I can try to explain it because this is in JavaScript. Oh no, it's not. Sorry. Yeah, so pretty much what you have here is it's just you have a state, which is pretty much binded to your emojis, and the emoji type, or like the state type, is itself an emoji array of emojis. And so it's based on this kind of massive data set of emojis with metadata, and so you're able to like search for different values based on yes, I would like to run it on a different port based on what you type in. So I can just show you real quick and I'll let you guys go. If you want to look at the code, it's on the GitHub. Yeah, so let's see. So it's in dark theme. No thanks. I want to burn my eyes. But yeah, so you can see that given all of this, if you click on an emoji, it copies it to your clipboard. If you like type in like face, of course you get all the faces, but your search gets narrower. Let's say you want to get like cards. They have cards, right? Yeah, playing cards. I could copy that, boom, based on what you type in. It's pretty interesting because there's a lot of calculations involved with iterating through every single emoji. You can see it kind of lags when I start typing stuff in, like yeah, it's like playing stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much the emoji searcher. I wish I had enough time to get through it. But yeah, thank you guys for attending. And again, if you have any questions, I'll be here. I could stick around. I'm sorry if I rushed again. Yeah, no problem. Let's stop the recording.